privilege to be on a panel of such esteemed academics. I've read most of your work and it's formed part of my PhD. Really the three previous talks have talked about European integration and cross-border cooperation. Really what I'm about to talk about now is pulling out of cross-border cooperation and European disintegration. In the title you'll find it just says Northern Ireland. We ended up just stopping giving any more context because it became that every time we wrote a paper, a bunch of us at Queen's normally the night before it would change, there'd be some dramatic political event, we'd have to rewrite sections of it. So my question to you all, and hopefully what we'll achieve at the end of this 10 minutes, is why the Irish border is critical to the actual Brexit process in itself, because I'm sure you have all heard of Brexit at this point and are well acquainted with it. Just to highlight a bit of maybe a dramatic version of the border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, so we'll go through it. So, why Brexit means borders, and my three colleagues have brought up Schengen quite a lot, and I thought this was a good visualisation of the different level of bordering that's within the EU. And as you can see, the United Kingdom already was sort of within the European Union, the economic area, and of course the customs union, which has become a very contentious point in the Brexit setup, and of course the backstop, which I'll get into. I was trying to figure out what to bring to my presentation, and really what I'm going to be doing is a sort of state of the border in itself. The whole point up to this point, the political paralysis in Northern Ireland, and the different scenarios that could end up with a deal, no deal, and different setups. So, just to give you a bit of a marker of Northern Ireland, the length of our border. In case of maybe doesn't know our recent history, we had a period of 30 years of conflict between both sides, Protestant, Unionist, and Royalist. This is generic terms to the other point of Catholic, Republican, and Nationalist. And during that point, we only had 20 spots open across the border, and of course we had it was a hard border. Now we have cross-trucking and everything has become a very big part of border regions. Just to make on a point, so really how the border came in of European integration is very important to note. The Good Friday Agreement, or the 1998 Agreement, or the Belfast Agreement, depending on what part of the divide you come from. I just wanted to talk about, in Northern Ireland, it's everybody's birthright to be British, Irish, or to have both passports. So that's quite I'll dig in that a wee bit later, but that's quite a complex nature to it, because if you're Irish, you get to be a European citizen, but you'll be in a territory that's outside the EU, and there's a very grey area. So from the Good Friday Agreement, which is essentially Northern Ireland's constitution and forms part of the UK's wider consocialism, installed power sharing with Northern Ireland between both sides of the community. We still operate a very binary system, and at times we ignore the middle ground or minorities in our politics. North-South cooperation, which was a very huge thing. The South of Ireland had a formal say from the Anglo-Irish Agreement, a bigger say since then, from 1985, and they had a secretariat developed in Belfast to advise Stormont on different issues, and of course British-Irish cooperation with different councils and talking about it. Again, a very important issue, a border poll, which has come up now time again. Essentially what people talk about a border poll when you're listening to it is allows for United Ireland if a majority of Northern Ireland vote for it. So that's become a very contentious issue, and these are just some of the different agencies that come between language, between Ulster Scots and Irish, if you speak a couple of Fucula, compared to food safety. There's been a waterways project in North and South. Intertrade Ireland has become a huge thing. A lot of integration has come through the European Union. So I just wanted to bring this up. This is basically how has the European transformed the Irish border region. And these are all major issues, but there's one thing I would like to take away, and we constantly put this power slide up. The depoliticization and normalization of cross-border cooperation. Before that wasn't a normal practice. the conflict really did divide an awful lot, not just with Northern Ireland, but North and South. People didn't want to come and work in Northern Ireland, or didn't want to be coming and trade in Northern Ireland because of that. Violence was a very big actor. So, next point. So we come to the withdrawal agreements. I'm hoping you all are aware of the withdrawal agreement that was agreed between Theresa May and the European Union. Someone threw me a nod. Okay, good, we're good. So the joint reports that came out in December 2007, I think it's very good to go over these things and how we got to this point. Basically, the two main key points was to avoid a hard border and to protect the 1998 Belfast Good Friday Agreements. These principles must be upheld in all circumstances, irrespective of the nature of any future UK-EU agreements, must be legally secure on the UK's exit. So, unless they solve the Northern Ireland issue, or the Irish question, as it's been called, and a UK exit is very difficult. I think the UK government was expecting, when it come to crunch time, the European Union to throw the Republic of Ireland under a bus, but they didn't. They stayed strong, and they made sure that everybody was Irish in that sense. The withdrawal agreements, published on 14th of November, included a protocol in Northern Ireland, and that's become a very, very big issue, known as the backstop. So, what does this all mean? Right now, according to the withdrawal agreement, 29th of March, that's changed now to the 31st of October. There should be a transition period between the 29th of March to 31st of December 2020. There is a possibility for extension if the UK wants that issues. During this time, there should be negotiations on the ratification of the new UK-EU relationship. Now, if this doesn't pan out, that is when the backstop arrangement comes in with the protocol, and that will decide a single customs union territory between the UK and the EU, and that will form the protocol in Ireland and Northern Ireland. And then then that will form, and that's become a major issue between members of the Conservative Tory party, that they believe that this is could break up the United Kingdom in itself. And then you have the new UK-EU relationship, economic partnership and security partnership is what they want to put for. But again, unless they sort this out within Westminster, I'd argue is the case, that's not going to happen. Now, if you want to look at what all that protocol entails, that is a list of the bilateral agreements that have been discussed. I could go into this so much more and so many times, but just to give you literally the level of detail that's gone into this and thinking about this, it can affect so much in that island. I mean, outside of the UK, north and south of the island will be the biggest affected from the economic turnout. So, our three scenarios. We can have a no Brexit. I'm not going to lie, I kind of hope that would happen, but I don't think that will happen. So really what we have is a no-deal Brexit or a deal Brexit. I don't think the EU will, I believe the UK might ask for another extension come October, but I don't believe the EU will offer it unless they come back and say you need a plan here for a referendum or a vote where both parties take a stance, or something concrete to go with that. So, no deal, just to go over it, if it did happen, it would take a long recovery period. And it's affected Northern Ireland already, North and South. Just to have a man from Armagh, I received VAT registration, rescinded VAT registration and closed my business. As a self-employed person, I planned to permanently move my business from Northern Ireland within the year. No matter what the outcome of Brexit is, myself, my family and my business will be better off moving to Southern Ireland. There will be fallout in terms of a no-deal Brexit. One person described it as one door being shut in our face and one door being thrown open to allow the world to punch us in the face, was described. All Brexit roads lead to the backstop. Coming from the UK government or Irish governments, it's in that sense. You're getting a theme in here. Very interesting. Respondents in Northern Ireland, including 91% Catholics, say a hard border would create division and promote paramilitary activism. Unless you don't know, going through the 30 years conflict, we had different paramilitaries. Again, in the Catholic side, you would have Republican and Nationalist. You would have from that community elements of the Irish Republican Army. Within the Protestant Unionist side, you would have had the UVF or UDA speeding on merrily. A deal, if it could happen, A hard Irish and land border will definitely be an issue, will not be entirely frictionless, as Northern Ireland will be part of a third country approach to the European Union. Again, if the backstop comes into play, in that grey period where I showed you, there will be a hard Irish sea border which has affected the DUP, which is in a supply and command deal with the Conservative Party, and that's a huge issue for them because that's a red stop. They do not want Northern Ireland to be any less British, but then you have the other side doesn't want Northern Ireland to be any less Irish, because an invisible border gave both ability to be comfortable in whatever identity they chose, or both, and that's what the EU was able to bring in that sense. And that is what's being peeled away, and that's what we're seeing divides coming out. I used to put in deal and alternative arrangements, but that's totally out the window at this point, just to show you how often this changes, PowerPoint changes. And then talking about technology, and this is something I'm going to be working on very soon, post-PhD, hopefully. I do an awful lot about data and regulations. And really, they've come up with this whole idea of a technology solution. There was a memo released from the Home Office, and they said a technology solution wouldn't be available for at least in the next 10 years, but yet they still push this idea. Combine, when we talk about artificial intelligence and technology, combined with information on goods, traders, and other data sources such as social media, talking about border people watching this. But this throws up a huge question about citizens' rights, north and south of the border, and what does this mean for operational enforcement and GDPR with the European Union. There's not an awful lot of thought been given this. These ideas have been throwing up. So I really wanted us to hone in, and this is not just all about economics. These are quotes from people we've done interviews with and talked about, and there's a real tension along the border between communities, between families, and about what this will do in terms of return to violence, peace, people going to school, people going to hospitals, people working, pensions, north-south of the border. I think that's a very big one. I believe any form of hard border will have an adverse effect on relations here between Unionists and Nationalists. Just an idea of what people would think. My family is split across both sides of the border. I have 50 first cousins, with approximately half on each side of the border. I'm a member of some literature groups, and they regularly meet on both sides of the border. My house is literally 250 metres from the border, across the fields. Everything I do crosses the border. My bus to Letterkenny crosses the border to Derry first, then back across and complete the journey to Letterkenny. One thing we've been doing is organising bus tours. So we've been taking people through different areas in the border to show agricultural cooperation. There's a Loch Ney, where there's actually nobody knows where the border is in that loch, and then we go on one road where you cross the border within the space of 5 minutes 10 times. So just to give you a snapshot of the implications. Just about that. And then I just want to bring up this political paralysis. Since Brexit, there has been a collapse of Stormont 2 years ago, and there has been no official default government in Northern Ireland. We have been under the hands of civil servants taking on ministerial roles and making decisions for us. And people said, oh sure, everything's going on and it's fine. And just last week, journalist Laura McKee was killed by the new IRA, a dissident Republican faction that has broken off from the IRA. And just to show you tensions in that Polaris, there's been no leadership, and it's been very difficult. In the same week, Nancy Pelosi came to Ireland and spoke on the Dáil, and she made it very clearly, we must ensure, with the Ways and Means community, we must ensure that nothing happens in Brexit discussions that imperils the Good Friday Accord, including but not limited to the seamless border between the Irish Republic and Northern Ireland. And she made claim that, in protecting Northern Ireland's peace, it's protecting the model that's been built around the Northern Ireland Good Friday Agreement and peace agreement that's been used in other places such as Colombia. Over the past 2 years, just on a personal, as a citizen, it's been very difficult, it's been very hard, and a lot's been done wrong. But for the first time, I would argue something was done right in terms of her funeral, Lyra's funeral, the Prime Minister and Leo Varadkar and the Irish Foreign Ministers and the Secretary of State all came together to show that and show support. And now, hopefully, when we've seen what could happen from the damage that we could, there is a realistic return to violence, there's a real return to disruption of people's lives, that we could maybe get a storm up and running again. I'm a bit disillusioned that will happen again. I think it won't happen until after Brexit. And just to finally offer you a timeline of where we're at, everything. 31st of Article 50 deadline. Before that, we'll have the European Council summit. September is when MPs return in conference season, and of course, we have now the contentious issue where the UK is going to be entering in European elections, and really that's going to become another proxy vote on an in-out referendum, and Northern Ireland's almost going to be, for Northern Ireland's context, it will be another proxy vote on a border poll of what will happen. I mean, just on a final note, sorry about that, it's very binary. People think it's two sides, but it's much more complex than that, and much more analysis needs to be offered from that. Sorry for like a really downer presentation with this, but there's a real sense of difficulty and the impact it will have on local people. And coming from 30 years of conflict, there's a generation that is very much scared, that basically looking into the void of that and how that's going to happen. So just really this touches on a lot of the themes of this conference between, borders moving away from the actual border and really affecting about identity and talking about people and everything, and this really had it all. And one interesting note that's come from this, and on a final thought, is that really an awful lot of relations to England didn't realise Northern Ireland was a part of the United Kingdom at times, where people didn't understand it, and it's shown a real ignorance on the Irish question, on the Irish situation, especially in reporting, and it's taken a lot of work and a lot of academics going out into the fields when there's been a lot of questions about how you can, as border scholars, go out and actually do effective work. And Queen's set up a clinic, Brexit clinic, so people from community, businesses, all the different sectors could come and ask questions of the academics and help them navigate this minefield, and set up a signposting system to send to different organisations that they could go and help and try and get the best help and the best advice they can to be Brexit ready, again, whenever that happens or will happen. But the binary two options will be the deal that's been negotiated, possibly maybe some movement around. I don't think that'll happen, or a no-deal Brexit. I can't really comment for the rest of the team or everything's working at Queen's, but on a personal level, I generally think we're looking at a cliff edge of a no-deal Brexit. Most people think there'll be a deal at the end, but with the two extensions going on. So I'll finish my time there. Thank you very much for listening to me.